Hi everyone, my name is Jack Olson and I'm a member of the Capturis knowledge base team. You'll meet the rest of my teammates, Yvonne Johnson, Ryan Chiraudo, and Willem Borer throughout the course of this presentation as we share our progress and results of our capstone project for the spring. I'd like to start by thanking our sponsors, Tanya Kessel, David Eichley, and Roy Savelka. They've all been a true pleasure to work with throughout this semester. Our technical mentor, Royce, went above and beyond this semester by making himself available. Basically, whenever we ran into issues with the project, we could text him any time of day and he'd seem to reply within 5 to 10 minutes. So huge shout out to him, and together all of our sponsors really helped make this project an enjoyable learning experience. Now, before I talk about Capturis, I'd like to share some information about NISC, or National Information Solutions Cooperative. NISC develops hardware and software solutions for hardware and telecommunications companies, as well as other infrastructure industries and Fortune 100 and 500 businesses. As a cooperative, NISC is owned by users of their systems called member owners. By operating on the 7 cooperative principles, which you can see included on this slide, member owners really help with providing an unparalleled working relationship with NISC, and they also provide an understanding of industry operations. NISC also has a very large market presence with over 20 million consumers in all 50 states and Canada receiving utility or telecommunication services from companies that utilize NISC systems. The building on the top right of this slide is their office in Mandan, North Dakota, which is also where our Capturis sponsors reside. As an NISC company, Capturis specializes in bill payment and management of resources and expenses. Their payment processing services provide an industry-leading rate of on-time payments and dramatically reduce late fees and disconnection of services. Capturis also provides various processing options since they realize a one-size-fits-all mentality doesn't meet everyone's business needs. They also have dynamic reporting tools, which help energy specialists monitor their overall usage while providing reporting and forecasting options through user-friendly database reporting tools. Capturis has 20 years of utility bill payment experience, and they process over 4.6 million bills annually. They also serve 175,000 client locations with a 100% conversion rate and 0 disconnects during implementation. So all in all, quality and experience are why businesses choose to use Capturis. When Capturis interacts with their clients, they do so through RFPs and security audits and various other documents that assist clients in making a decision to move to Capturis. These documents contain hundreds of records containing questions, answers, and various other pieces of data like question category, subcategory, question comments, etc. Currently, these records are documented on massive Excel sheets that contain hundreds of rows spread throughout multiple sheets in a single document. And due to the nature of these documents, many clients share the same or similar questions. And since each client has a different set of Excel sheets, the only way to see how certain questions are historically answered is to sift through old Excel documents from other clients. So as you can see, Capturis would greatly benefit from a system that stores all these questions and all these pieces of data in a single place that they can search through to easily find the best possible answer every time they have a question come up. So in the short term, there's a need to document these customer interactions more effectively, and in the long term, there's a need to aggregate these answers in order to consistently provide accurate and helpful answers. And next, I'll turn it over to my teammate, Ryan Chiraudo, who will go over our knowledge base solution.
Thanks, Jack. So for the solution to our knowledge base, we wanted to implement a library that holds all the questions and answers. And to do this, we are using a PostgreSQL database. And we have tables within the UI that have editable cells so that people can manipulate the data from within the project that call back to the database and can update everything as needed. This solution will be used as reference for future questions so that they can see how they answered in the past, or if they have similar questions, and they can just store the data in one spot so that it's all easily accessible. The implementation that we used, we made a web application where users can store questions, answers, and other metadata. They can search across all data by keywords or phrases. They can filter search results, and the implementation leverages predefined lists when adding questions such as customer lists, source document type, etc. And this is just available as dropdowns. And this is more used for more static data, things such as don't change as often, just so that people don't have to type everything in themselves. Our interface design starts off with a login page where users can either log in if they already have an account or register for an account if they don't. The administration page is obviously for admins only. This is where like customer tables, user roles, etc. are stored. This is just a bunch of the tables that don't need to be seen by everyone. This is where, admins can change other people's roles. This is where they can add, say, if there's a new article type that is created and is starting to be used, they can add that in. And this is where admins can also create data for the dropdowns that I mentioned previously. Our main knowledge base page uses NG2 Smart Table, which has built-in functionality for multi-column sorting and filtering, and also built-in functionality to create, edit, and delete content within the data source. Up next is Willem with the database design.
Thank you, Ryan. Continuing with the database design principles that we established as a priority at the midterm presentation, we have made some alterations and improvements. Notably, for the capstone team, we have forgone secure shell connections onto the campus's network, electing to instead whitelist each team member's IP address in order to allow for a secure connection while working from home. Since midterm, the data structure has also undergone a few minor updates, as seen as the following slide. Here we can see the current iteration of our data structure. Since you last saw it, there have been two slight changes. The answer table no longer has a question foreign key, and the requester table is now utilizing an enumerator data type in order to control what values are allowed to be specified for a requester type. Functionality of the enumerator change could have been achieved with another database table, but the Capturis team elected to have an enumerator in order to slightly increase the application's performance. On the topic of performance, our goals for the database at the midterm were normalization to the third normal form, the implementation of indexing, and the definition of functions and triggers. With the new alterations that were made to the database design, we are proud to say that our goal of normalization to the third normal form has been achieved and upheld. Continuing with performance, we have indexing. At our last update, we only had indexing implemented on the primary keys within the database. By choice, we are currently in the same situation, as we did not see any tables which could be improved with more indices. Lastly, for performance, we have functions and triggers, which we can see an example of in the following slide. In this implementation, we are defining a trigger and a function in order to update a specified column when an action occurs within the database. We have assigned triggers to all tables, which allow us to automatically update the created on and last updated on values whenever a record is inserted or updated. As a special case, the user table has a separate function in order to detect changes to a user's password and update the password last updated on column. Finally, we have security. Our updated security plan for the project still revolves around the principle of least access, obfuscating paths which could be exploited to see sensitive functions, and our temporary authentication solution. Our database's user login function has, however, undergone some alterations. As a breakdown of our altered login function, we have four main steps. First, we declare input parameters for username and password, and output parameters for the data which is returned by the function. Then, for security purposes, we place restrictions on who has permission to alter this function. This will allow only the definer of the actual function to change it, meaning that the database administrators have full control. Finally, we set values for the output parameters. Now, Ryan will give you a demonstration of the application.
All right, Here we have the Capturis knowledge base. This is the capstone project we've been working on for the past semester. And this is just our login page. You can see basic stuff, username field, password field, login. And if you don't have a user account, you can register, in which case you'll just need to fill out this lengthy form, but this is all the data that the database needs to create your user. But for today's purposes, I will just be using a test account that we have created. Let me just log in quick. As you can see in the top left, it does show who is currently logged in. Willem Boer is just the name associated with this account. That is not necessarily my name, but that will change based on the credentials of whoever is being logged in. This is the basic tab that you're seeing right away. This is for users who have read-only access. They don't have access to edit, delete, or create new data in the table. And the things that they can really do is just search through the data, and let's just say, for example, they want to see questions that have only been requested by CBRE. So go up here, type in CBRE, and it'll sort by the CBRE filter that we've applied, and it'll just temporarily remove all the other data from the table. And now if we wanted to do the article type alphabetically alongside our CBRE filter, we can just click the header for article type, and it will sort alphabetically both ascending and descending, depending on how many times you click it. Up next, we have our advanced tab, and as you can see, there's a new column called actions. This is where people can add new entries, edit, delete, and just kind of mess with the data as they see fit. So let's create a new question here. Click add new. As you can see, there are a bunch of drop downs. This is stuff for more standardly static data. Specifically these category details. This is kind of a special drop down. The category details is a concatenation of the category and subcategory tables that we have in the database, and we just wanted to keep them all together so that there isn't any mismatch and any confusion if something were to get misplaced. Let's just fill out some arbitrary information here. Now you see it is quite long, but we do have horizontal scrolling. Another drop down, a couple more arbitrary values, and these last four columns you'll see created on, created by, last updated on, last updated by. These you can enter data in here, but it will be overwritten by what we have in the database. So let's just create one of those. And as you can see, it has shown up here at the top. Now, maybe something changed, or maybe we just entered something in wrong. We can edit it. Let's say we got the requester wrong. Say it was instead Huntington, and it was a business article, right? We can change those. We can update it, and it will update it within the table. Now, also, maybe this doesn't need to be here anymore. Maybe the question's outdated. Maybe we've had a better question or just a better formatted entry, and we don't need this one anymore. So we can just go ahead and delete it, and it'll automatically take it out of the table. Onto the admin tab. This has just drop downs for all the individual tables for the more static data or things that people don't necessarily need to see. And here we have the user table. This is where admins can edit the access roles, or maybe they need to change a username or whatever. And these all function similarly to the main knowledge base table. As you can see, there are quite a few independent tables that need to be handled here. So these dropdowns are just for usability and ease of access, just so everything isn't so cluttered. And finally, we have our log out button. And this will obviously take you back to the main page and login page, and that is the demo for our project.
Thanks for that demo, Ryan. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the issues and risks we face while working on the project. So the first thing we encountered was how we were going to deal with SQL injection. And so we decided to go with prepared statements within the application for obfuscation of sensitive functions. We also hit some issues when it came to integrating the database and our server-side functions. which essentially we figured out, but then it took us more time than we would have liked, which pushed back the amount we were able to accomplish. And of course, we had some scheduling conflicts between us. Some of us worked in the mornings, some of us worked in the afternoons, just various life things. And also, COVID-19 obviously had at least a minor impact on the team for splitting us up and probably causing at least a minor amount of stress to the team. So next I'd like to talk about the schedule, the progress, and the status. So our planned sprint schedule was sprint 1, we were going to work on the database and the environment setup. Sprint 2, basic functionalities. Sprint 3 was our admin features, our add, our edit, our delete table stuff. And then 4 was going to be specifically reserved for Excel exporting and importing and multi-column sorting. Instead, we ended up hitting a few snags after sprint 2, where we needed to work more on our server-side functions, making sure our tabs work, and working towards finishing the login, the register, and all of the stuff that we ended up pushing back into sprint 4, like add, edits, deletes, functionalities, and the functioning roles to see which user can see what content, and some users can't see that content. So our user point story analysis is we had 4 points in sprint 1, 3 points in sprint 2, and 3 points in sprint 3, and then finally we had 64 points in sprint 4. The main issue with this is that after midterm, we decided to reevaluate our story points. And when we did that, we edited the project specification document. Unfortunately, that made the math a little difficult for calculating how much our sprints were worth in retrospect. So we decided that only the user stories that got fully completed at the end of a sprint were worth points. So that's why most of the points are back into sprint 4, when they were actually some of them were like 80% done by sprint 3, but they weren't fully done, so they didn't count for points. Finally, I'd like to, not quite finally, I'd like to talk about post-mortem next. So the team together worked about 312.5 hours. The numbers on that is actually a little skewed, considering we lost some time on meetings that we were all working together. The math didn't work out, and we also had meetings where we just weren't recording the amount of time and other things like that. So I'm sure this number is actually supposed to be at least a little bit higher. We had about 8,000 lines of Java code. I think we were predicting about 7,000. We had 99 classes when we were thinking about 70, and we had 76 story points, as you saw in the last page, and we originally had about 54. So now finally, I would like to talk about the future of the product. So one of the things we wanted to implement was the ability to refresh the page and stay logged in as a user. And unfortunately, we weren't quite able to finish that. Another thing was Excel getting fully functional. Right now, it can only read files. It can't import or export. We also wanted to be able to sort by multiple columns instead of just one. And we wanted an Active Directory integration. And finally, of course, we hope that the product will continue to spark creativity and be implemented in interesting and innovative ways.